King David Studio podcast.
Do you have any friends? I'm curious.
What kind of question is this?
Ronaldinho page.
You see, this is why I didn't want to do this interview.
Why not, though? What's wrong with this interview?
You know, my challenge with you, before I answer that question, has always been that you're that guy who, David, that you can put on the makeup of who you want the world to be, and they'll let you get away with it.
Yeah.
The difficulty with you is that you're so comfortable in who you are that you meet people at your level of authenticity, not theirs. And if you struggle to be authentic with yourself, you're going to struggle to keep company with you, right? Because you're like no airs and graces type of thing.
I don't know how to put up makeup. I would put eyebrows in the wrong place.
But you recognize that this is literally how 90% of the world functions. 90% of the world is people playing a role that society has told them they need to play.
Oh, no.
So when you get to ask questions like, do you have friends? I don't think anybody has ever asked me that. Do you want the honest answer?
The honest answer.
I do now. I do now. But I can count them in one hand, half of my one hand, frankly. But the truth is that for much of my life, if not most of it, the answer to that question honestly would have been no.
Why was that? Why was the no?
I think, for sure, I think I've got trust, vulnerability, and intimacy issues. That has a lot to do with it. I think it also has a lot to do with when the world met you as a success, it treats you as how it met you. And you're still a human being at the end of the day. Yeah. And so getting to build real, authentic relationships with people who don't see you as, I hate to use the brand, but who don't see you as the personal brand that you are, I hate the term, but who don't see you as that, or who don't see you as a paycheck, or who don't see you as the guy who will be recognizable when they are with you. Yeah. That's very rare. It's very rare for just the fact that you're the first person I can think in my 39 years who's ever actually sat across me in a media interview and asked me that question. Gives you a sense that people meet you where they are at and
where they see you.
And where they see you.
Yeah.
And for most people, if you are, Unkulunkulu has been very kind to me, right? But if you have been as blessed as I have, by the time they see you, in their minds, they hope you're an answered prayer.
Oh.
And so they treat you as the answered prayer. Yeah. They don't treat you as a human being living life, having the full expressions of life. And so you can't be weak, you can't be vulnerable. It's very difficult to be any of those things because you don't know if the person with whom you're sharing that side of you is going to meet you there. But today, by God's grace, I've got one or two people that I can say, that's an actual friend.
Yeah. What in your opinion defines a friend in that context? And I asked this question probably to you because you say you didn't and now you managed to get. Clearly there must have been your own realization of this is a worthy companion as a friend. What are the attributes that in your opinion would make that person a friend?
So let me just say, I think to be fair, there are also people I've had in my life who probably wanted to be that. I just wasn't willing to create the space for whatever reason that might have been at the time. But if I were to venture a guess about, what makes a friend, given where I'm at in my life right now, it's the number one thing is, can we pray together?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And for those who are not believers or who are not in the faith, a pray together could be, can we cry together? Can we dream together?
Yeah.
Can we meditate together? Right. In other words, can we do something that is not in the world, not physical, that exposes our deepest, most vulnerable parts together, and then come out of that and know that neither you nor I feels any more, any less because of that. So that for me is probably number one. And number two is, can I trust this person to hold my name in my absence?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
when they're having a conversation with somebody else about you.
100%. And you must recognize if it's a bit like if you and I are like really good friends, it's not going to happen that in a 7-day cycle somebody doesn't say David Mashabela.
Of course.
You're King David, right? It's like this is literally the guy who's the king of radio in South Africa. It's not happening any other way. That if you mention you know him, they don't have an opinion about him. And that's always been both my curse and my blessing. And so the real question is, can this person hold my name in my absence? And I think it's true actually of everybody everywhere. A lot of us have people we call friends who behind scenes pretend to be friends, but actually behind the scenes that's not really the case.
They say other things.
Or worse than saying other things, they are quiet when things are said. Right.
I think Julius has been going through that.
I'm sure. I'm almost sure.
There are people who are not saying anything about the attacks I'm getting.
100%.
And yet I consider them
personal.
important in the story we're doing.
You can tell a lot by who shows up for you when you are at war.
Wow.
You can tell a lot. Because what happens is when you are on the ascent, when everything is going well,
yes,
people show up for the climb. But the real question is, who really shows up for you when your name is being questioned?
Did they show up only for the climb or also for the peak? For the
summit.
When you're now at the top of the mountain, there's a lot of people who would appear. I guess but not for the descent.
For the descent, yeah. And I think that, to your point, a lot of even those who show up on the climb are hoping that they get to climb with you. And you're right, they're showing up for that summit.
Yes.
I must figure out kind of thing, right? But again, I think what people don't realize is just, every person you look up to, you admire, you've read about in history, and even those who simply fit into the gray background of history, all of us bleed the same blood. And so everybody needs, it's a cliched saying, but everybody needs counsel. And there's very, very little of true, authentic counsel to go around. I'll tell you, I don't know if you remember this, but on one of the occasions you and I met, there was a mutual connection of ours who was in the property business.
Yes.
And I haven't spoken to him in a long time, so you'll forgive me. I haven't kept up with where he's been at. But at the time, he was doing unbelievably well. And,
still doing well.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were guys who were coming around like, oh, we'll do this for you and we'll do that for you and we'll doing this, we'll do that for you.
We'll do it with you.
We'll do it with you.
Yeah.
And I remember you and I were sitting at, I want to say it's like the Cappuccinos or something. Then
something like
Midrand is still was small back then, right? Back when we used to live out that way. And you and I were having coffee, and it's like you said something. I still remember it, and it's over 10 years ago.
Never.
Yeah. Here's what you said.
Yeah.
You said you were like, I was like, where were you? Because we were coming into the meeting, and you were a little bit late. You were like, oh, I just met with person X, and I was like, oh, what were you guys discussing? You said, no. There were people who were trying to take advantage of him, and I just called him into a meeting to be like, yo, I'm in this game. This is how this game actually works. Yeah. So take my advice, don't take it, but here's how I would approach this thing. And I remember thinking, that's so rare. That's so rare. And also because when you chatted to him, you weren't saying to him, I will do it for you.
No.
You were like, just be careful. This is how this thing works.
Yeah.
And if you go into this arrangement, you're going to be exploited. That kind of heart is not a heart a lot of people have. A lot of people have the me, myself, and what do I gain heart.
There's a point you're making with that story, which I remember. I'd forgotten the exact words, but you clearly remember them. But there's something you say about people who would say, don't do it with them, rather do it with me, where the benefit is for them.
100%.
And do you find that's what happens?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
There is a point of what I call your Googleable net worth, right? Because Google has its numbers, right? Yeah. There is a point of your Googleable net worth where your search results determines how people present to you, and often people will come to you and be like, "Don't buy this. Buy this instead."
Yeah.
They don't go, don't buy this, just don't buy it. Like, you don't need it.
It's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea. Or is this a terrible idea? Or, talk to this person. He might have a better, it's always, not always, but it's more often than not, I have something better. But rather than saying, I think I have something better, I'm going to try and make the other person look bad. And I must tell you, my guy, I remember, then I was in like my early to mid 20s. And I remember going, what a heart to be able to do that thing in Joburg, right? Because, in Joburg, it's also like just get and eat and do your thing and move on to next. And I was like, that's an interesting and a special way to view relationships.
Do you have someone that tells you when you're wrong?
All the time. I've got great counsel now.
Wow.
It's my superpower. I've got 3 superpowers, but for sure, one of my superpowers is exactly that.
Yeah.
I've got great counsel, great counsel. And I think it's one thing to have great counsel. It's quite another to seek it. And life has taught me enough, has humbled me enough to know that you've got to seek counsel, right? So, I'm at this, you and I, when you were taking me for a tour, and I was like, man, we're doing this. Could I lean on you for something? Type of thing, right? And I think that a lot of people, so I'm lucky in the sense that I've got unbelievable counsel. Sometimes counsel that gives me advice that I'm like, I don't want that one. I'm just like, because I'm still Vusi, right?
Yeah, that's why I ask. That's why I ask, how much pushback do you give to this counsel that you get? Because you're still Vusi.
A lot. So to be clear, the conversations that I have with the counsel that I get is adversarial. We're fighting. This is not like, oh, let's talk now. No, we're fighting. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it this way, or I don't think this is right, or here's what I want to do. Right.
Okay.
But then I'm able to calm it down and think about it a little bit. And if you value the person's opinion and you know their heart, you know that you can take a step back and go, let me actually just think about it. And sometimes I might still do the thing I wanted to do, but there was sufficient pause between the thought and the thing that my heart is at peace with the decision and the action that I take. So yeah, man, I've got great counsel, unbelievable counsel across everything, David. I must tell you, like across family, faith, across wealth, across life decisions, across everything. I've just got people I can call on and go, hey, man, I'm struggling with this, or I'm looking at this, or I'm about to make this decision. I just thought, let me give you a call. What do you think? And then we can bounce off ideas. And 90% of the time I disagree with the advice, but I'm able to sit down and be in the conversation about it and reason it out from the other person's perspective.
King David Studio Podcast.